What's up, New York? Welcome back to the episode of New York State Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Ricky Keeler back with you on a special Wednesday primetime episode. We got a lot to get into. The Giants and Jets with the preseason openers. Talk about what went right, a little bit of what went wrong. Of course, with the Jets, the Sun still hasn't practiced with the Jets. He's now requesting a trade. So whose fault really is the situation, and is it really a same old Jet? We'll dive into that. The Giants, you get a running back, get 2 touchdowns in his first preseason game. Another running back that's hurt in practice. We'll dive into all of that and get set for preseason week number 2 coming up over the weekend. One Soto hits 3 home runs for the Yankees on Tuesday. They're still concerned with this team, and now Jazz is on the shelf. So much for the trade deadline. For the Mets, Francisco Lindor makes the career milestone tonight. The team is struggling to hit with men in scoring position. Is that a concern? Can the offense carry this team to the playoffs? We'll talk NYCFC making it to the League's Cup quarterfinals. What is a marquee win for the history of the franchise? We'll talk to Liberty resuming play after the Olympic break. And we'll talk Staten Island, the Little League World Series, coming up tomorrow on ESPN. It's all coming up next here on New York State Sports Night Sports Radio. Direct feed for all the sports. We will see you in just a minute.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
And of course, welcome back here to New York State Sports Night Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Of course, follow our great sponsors, Planet Jerky and Seal the Deal Wax Seals. I would have had some jerky going on before I'm watching the football game, so it's always a good choice. And then those awesome fall weddings you got going on. When I get those cool invitations, Seal the Deal Wax Seals is the place for you to go. Of course, you'd also go to our shop, iesportsradio.com/shop. Check out the merch. We had a good deal going on until the end of the month. Definitely want to load up. Maybe you send your kids to school in an IE Sports Radio t-shirt. That'd be a lot of fun. Of course, all of our shows and everything going on at iesportsradio.com. You can check out what we've been doing for over the last 10 years and what makes this network great. So let's talk Jets to start off with. And the big story here in Jet camp, before we dive into week 1 in the preseason, is what's going on with Hassan Reddick, who has requested a trade. He is still not reported to training camp. He has not done one practice with the team. So he gets traded, reports for the physical, does a press conference, and has done nothing since. And at the same time, you get it because look, the guy wants to get paid. The guy has had great years with the Eagles over the last couple of years. He's an edge rusher, wants to get paid like a premium edge rusher, and you understand that. And then you understand from the Jets' standpoint is look, we traded for you, and there hasn't really been any contractual talk since then. So did the Jets not do their homework in this process, or is Reddick just not being cooperative? Now, Reddick deserves to get paid. There's no doubt about that. But the question is, how far are the Jets willing to go to make this happen? Because remember, they do have something to lose, but not everything to lose. They gave a conditional pick in 2026. No one's going to sit there and say, it's not like giving up a first rounder and you have to get this guy signed. If this guy doesn't want to play and you want to take away game checks, all that stuff, the Jets have every right to do that. But where you question the Jets is this. How do you not know that this was going to be a pain in the butt when you made this trade? Did you have a wink with Howie Roseman and the Eagles that he was going to get this thing done? Was it a unwritten agreement that this could possibly happen? Look, nobody knows. But we're watching in real time tonight the Falcons trading for Matthew Judon from the Patriots and giving up a third-round pick in next year's draft. And the Falcons, well, they don't have a deal done yet, are trying to get a deal done before week 1 because Judon wants to get paid. Now, Judon didn't have the stink that Reddick has done. Judon's been at Patriot camp and practicing and all those things. So he's kind of taking a different approach. You're seeing Brandon Ayuk with the Niners doing the whole hold-in approach where he's at practice, but he's not practicing. And I don't know about you, but I'm sick of all the Brandon Ayuk updates. I just want something to happen with that guy. Like, I think that's really what you're looking at this point, is you want to figure out, is Hassan Reddick going to be in camp or not? Because the Jets have a good defense without him, but they can be a great defense with him. And in a year where you're trying to make it to the Super Bowl, where it's a Aaron Rodgers or bust kind of year, you've got to get this contract done. So the question is, can both sides come to the table and make this deal a reality? If they can't, that's more egg on Joe Douglas's face, who is familiar with the time with the Eagles with Howie Roseman. This should have been an easy one. But for Reddick, at some point, you got to get into camp. And maybe it's just setting up a meeting with Aaron Rodgers and trying to make that happen. And this guy can do so much, and you get it. He's played on some bad football teams. He played in Arizona. He played in Carolina. Dude wants the money. But the dude also has to realize this is a chance to play for a team that can go to a Super Bowl. And if he doesn't get the contract, and get it next year. There's an opportunity still to get money on the table. So I think both sides are at fault. Both sides are kind of stubborn in this. Reddick's trying to make a trade when that's really his last leverage pull. The Jets, I think, have all the leverage in this. They can just keep finding him until he shows up. If he doesn't show up at a certain point, he loses a year going into free agency. So I think right now the Jets are in the driver's seat. Reddick's got to come to them. Because it looks bad that Reddick understandably wants to get paid more than a guy like Bryce Huff got in Philadelphia when he has a different skill set. He wants to be paid like a top pass rusher. And part of it, he does certainly get paid. But both sides have to kind of fix this here for the Jets. Speaking of the Jets, they won their preseason opener over the Commanders 20-17, a good win for the New York Jets. And again, preseason, you don't really worry about wins and losses too much, as we'll check out the box score here on the screen. And obviously, no Aaron Rodgers. You're not going to get a lot in these these preseason games, if you will. But a couple of things stood out on the Jets side, one being their rookie running backs. And you start with a guy like Braylon Allen from Wisconsin, 6 carries, 54 yards. He had a 24-yard run in this game. Isaiah Davis with 4 catches out of the backfield for 33 yards, in addition to 4 carries. So I thought both running backs did a really good job of setting the tempo. Both these players want to make a stand and get number 2 running back spot. You had Abanaconda get a touchdown late in the game, third stringer. So all 3 of these guys trying to compete for that playing time behind Breece Hall. So I thought that was a good thing. In terms of quarterback play, Adrian Martinez, 104 yards, familiar with his time from Nebraska. Andrew Peasley threw for 73 yards, 8 of 11. He had a touchdown to Jason Brownlee, who we talked about on last week's show. Needed a big game and he got it. And that was a big key for them. So you give him credit there. And I thought the Jet defense did a good job in stopping the run. Yes, Jaden Daniels made a big throw down the field early in the game, but that's one where he just chalked it up to a really good throw. He ended up running in a touchdown. But the running for the Commanders, they ran it 34 times, but for 119 yards, about 3.5 yards a carry. And outside of really one big run by Jeff Driscoll, the Commanders couldn't run the football. So while there's not a lot of starters out there for the Jets, you're seeing the front seven make that kind of an impact that this front seven is going to have to do to win going forward. So I like what I saw from the Jets defense in that regard. Their next game, they're going to take on the Carolina Panthers. That is going to be Saturday night at 7 o'clock. You would think you would see more starters in there, being its preseason game number 2. Carolina didn't play a lot of their starters in week 1. Home opener for them. Maybe they get Bryce Young in the game. A chance for the Jets to kind of do something there. So overall, I think good preseason week 1 for the Jets. Now, Adam asks, would the Jets be interested in trading Reddick? What kind of compensation would they want back? I don't think they want to trade him, Adam. I think they're in a position where what they get back is probably to be what they gave up, which was a conditional third in 26. I don't think they're not going to call his bluff, because if they go and trade him, any player can now go to the Jets and go, I want out. And I know Jamal Adams did that. I know Denzel Mims did that. But does Joe Douglas really want to set a precedent of anybody who wants out can just get out? This guy went in. This guy, when he got in the trade, took the physical, did the press conference, did all that, and all of a sudden doesn't want to play. So at the end, he looks bad here. And if you're another team, are you really going to waste your cap space, if you have any left, this late in summer to make this happen? The Falcons can, with the case of Matt Judon, because they lost one of their top pass rushers. They had to get this done. But I know that I think Chicago was another team, from what I read, interested in Judon, and Arizona. Maybe Chicago makes a play if this gets ugly, but I don't see it getting brighter. But the Jets can just sit back and say, if you want to sit back and don't get paid, don't get paid. They have all the ploy here. So I would be shocked if really Joe Douglas gave in and made this trade. Not that it would make the Jets worse if they did, but it just sets a bad precedent all around. I don't think at this stage in the game they need to do that. So let's talk some Giants. Giants also had a good week, although this game was really ugly. Like, if you watch this was a legit preseason football game. They did beat the Lions 14-3, but I watched a lot of this game, and it was an ugly, ugly football game. You're talking, the Lions didn't play Jared Goff. The Giants didn't play Daniel Jones. Malik Neighbors did play, but they never really threw him the ball. So you didn't really get to see what you were hoping to see in this game. You'll see it more when we talk about their next preseason game coming up. But a couple of things still stood out on the Giants side. And I think for starters, one is going to be the play of Eric Gray. Now, this is a guy who is trying to get the backup running back job behind Devin Singletary. And Gray had some really good runs. He had 4 carries, 52 yards. He did have a 48-yard touchdown with some impressive juke moves early in the game. Giants got both touchdowns in the second quarter. Gray also was their leading receiver, 4 catches for 46 yards. Giants really didn't get much in the receiving game outside of Gray and Tyree Jackson, the former Buffalo tight end turned quarterback. So offensively, there wasn't much to really write home about, because you didn't see the guys you were hoping to see. Theo Johnson's at tight end. Jalen Hyatt had 1 target. You didn't see Singletary. Dante Miller had a good game. But Gray's role was going to be big, especially with Tyrone Tracy, who gets hurt yesterday in practice, gets an air cast. Everybody thought it was going to be a serious injury. And it sounds like, from all accounts, it's just a low ankle sprain. So the Giants dodged a bullet there, because they were relying on Tracy to be both catching the ball in the backfield and being a running back, the 5th-round pick out of Purdue. So for now, Gray is going to get the primary backup running back looks. So he's a player that's going to take advantage of his opportunities, and he did that in the first preseason game, which is exactly what you would hope for. Also, I thought the Giants' defense played well. They had 4 sacks. They had an interception. Let's face it, Nate Sudfeld stinks. Was 13 of 24, 96 yards and a pick. You saw Hendon Hooker a little bit in this game, but he was more of a running quarterback than a thrower. Like if Jared Goff got hurt, the Lions are screwed. Like that's the kind of takeaway I got from this ball game from a Giant defense perspective. But they did a really good job in a game that had ugly weather. You had all the rain from the tropical the hurricane coming in. Like I said, it was a game nobody really wanted to watch. But the Giants had some good things on defense, particularly from Deontay Johnson. This is a guy I think that you want to look into going forward as some depth in the defensive line. He had four total tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for loss. Bogey Basham had a sack and a tackle for loss. And people forget about Ojulari, too, for the Giants. So they have a lot of depth that they're trying to find in this defensive line. That's the strength of this team. Because if they get home with Thibodeau and Burns and Lawrence, they find that fourth guy that kind of can go into that front seven, that's going to take pressure off this young secondary, who did a good job, obviously, in the first game. If there's one thing to be concerned about, I think, from the first contest, it's the quarterback play. We didn't see Daniel Jones, but Drew Lock, who had a hip issue, ended up leaving the game. 4 for 10, 17 yards. He had an interception. He didn't look good at all. Tommy DeVito came back in. He had 92 yards, 8 of 15. He took a sack. He's okay. Like, I never remember we weren't doing the show last year. I wasn't a huge Tommy DeVito fan. I love the story, but he wasn't the future of your franchise. So when you're bringing in Drew Lock, if Daniel Jones goes down, I'd rather see Drew Lock than Tommy DeVito because Lockett did what DeVito last year, but did it better. Like, that's the guy I want in there. But you're seeing it. The Giants' quarterback depth is not good. And when you don't have a good offensive line, you're going to have to worry about your quarterback depth, especially if Daniel Jones gets banged up. Now, Evan Neal is off the PUP list, which is a good sign. They have to keep bringing in different guys for this line. And can this unit be truly fixed going into the season? I'm not quite so sure. Now, the next game for the Giants will be taking on the Houston Texans. It is an afternoon game, 1 o'clock Eastern on Saturday. So if you're a New York football fan, you get the Giants at 1 o'clock, get the Jets at 7 o'clock. So that should be a lot of fun for both those teams. Ralph saying, yep, hit that icon, please. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff to the IE Sports Radio channel. We got some good stuff going on. And Adam giving us our update. Juan Soto's homered for the 4th time in 2 games. I think that the White Sox must love Juan Soto, so maybe they'll give him the $600 million. I was hoping for Aaron Judge, because we're going to get in the next segment. He's still 1 homer shy of 300. I was hoping that you get like the Judge 300th home run on air or something tonight. That would be pretty cool. So let's take our first break. We'll come back. We'll talk some Yankees. We'll talk some Mets. Both these teams have still some questions. Yankees, I got to rip into after that terrible loss they had on Monday. That was awful. And the Mets are not exactly playing great, even though they're off to a good start tonight. We'll see where both these teams stand in the mix of the wild cards and division races. That's all coming up next here on New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. We will be right back after this.
The roar of the crowd, the drama and pageantry, the adrenaline rush and decadence of the world of professional wrestling. Join yours truly, the SoCal Saint, for the best pro wrestling podcast going today, the IE Wrestling Show, exclusively on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Join us every Wednesday from 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Once again, every Wednesday, the IE Wrestling Show. It's just too woo!
It's IE Sports Radio. It is your direct feed for all that is sports. It is Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris every Tuesday night right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris, the most comprehensive view on Philadelphia sports exclusively right here on IE Sports Radio. You know what it is, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tuesday night, IE Sports Radio, Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris.
Of course, welcome back to New York State Sports, IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. Of course, the Phillies have been struggling, but the Mets can't seem to catch up to the Phillies at this point. They just built up too big a lead, but we'll dive into the Mets here in a little bit. But let's start with the Yankees. And of course, as Adam pointed out earlier, Juan Soto continues to torture the Chicago White Sox, which, quite frankly, this year everybody is torturing the Chicago White Sox. And Adam said the Sox have never given a player $100 million, let alone $600 million. That's true, but I'm looking at Juan Soto last night, 3 home runs. Basically, it was Juan Soto 4, White Sox 1. He had Grady Sizemore comment the other day that if fans want to see Aaron Judge, they should buy a ticket to another game because we're not pitching to him, which should be the case. But Soto tonight crushing a home run, his 34th of the year. So it sounds like Judge and Soto are going to be the first teammates on the Yankees to 40-plus home runs since Maris and Mantle in 61. So these guys are having insane seasons, and the question is going to be, let's look at short-term and long-term. Short-term, can Juan Soto and Aaron Judge carry this Yankee team to a division title? Because unless they absolutely collapse in the last 6 weeks of the season, they should be making the postseason. Right now, coming in tonight, they got a half-game lead on the Orioles for the division. And if you look at the wild card right now, it's essentially a 5-game lead in the loss column on the Red Sox just to stay in the postseason race. And the Yankees' schedule, very favorable in August. Now, they haven't played like it's very favorable in August. They haven't dominated the way you would want these teams to dominate. But at the same time, I don't see the team going into a tailspin. But the key is going to be you have to win the division. If you don't win the division, you don't get that bye, and you got to play that best of 3. Now, in all likelihood, you might be playing the best of 3 all at Yankee Stadium, but the Yankees, with their pitching and the way it is right now, don't think it sets up for a long run in the playoffs if they have to go to that wild card, play 2 out of 3, then play a team like Cleveland or Baltimore or Houston. Right now, if the seeds hold and the Astros win their first round, you play Houston again, which is the last thing Yankee fans want based off the last few years with the Astros. So Soto and Judge are going to have to do their thing. And especially now that Jazz Chisholm's on the IL with that shoulder sprain that he took in Tuesday's game sliding into home plate. Great athletic play, but it stinks you had to lose him. He's now out for the next at least 3 to 4 weeks. If that is only the case, that's good news for the Yankees. They need Chisholm back in this lineup because that's the guy that brought spark. That's the guy who brought energy. That's the guy who brought a different change of pace to this team. Because without him, Brian Cashman has an awful trade deadline. At least right now. They bring in Chisholm, he gets hurt. You bring in Mark Leiter, he's got an ERA over 6. He hasn't pitched like the guy the Yankees expect him to. He pitched so bad Sunday that they bring in Clay Holmes, who threw 45 pitches. The Yankees almost blew that game to Texas. Sorry to Hardadrewski, who's later on at 10 o'clock, but that's just the sad reality of the business. The Yankees should have dominated Texas, and they only won 2 out of 3, and they barely did. So Leiter was bad. Daniel De Los Santos, the guy they got, the pitcher, they DFA'd him today to make the move to call up Will Warren because they need pitching. They played 2 doubleheaders in the last week. So you look at a pitcher they brought in that DFA'd, a relief pitcher with an ERA over 6, and their best offensive player they acquired is hurt. Again, you hate to play prisoner of the moment, but it doesn't look good for Brian Cashman. And you've seen him acquire players that eventually get hurt. Frankie Montas comes to mind. So they need Chisholm back, and they need him back quickly because this is a team that you saw without Jazz went into a tailspin offensively and could not hit consistent. You saw it Monday. That was an embarrassing loss on Monday. And if the Yankees win the series, I know it's not gonna be the end of the world. You still took the series. I think losing the series would give you more panic than anything else. That you can't even beat this team. But the way they lost, they got pounded. Was it 12-2, the most runs the White Sox scored all season? That's embarrassing. Luis Gil didn't pitch well, and I love what Aaron Boone said after before today's game. They didn't option Luis Gil because they would look they basically to paraphrase. Gil's been doing so well all year. They didn't want to have to option him. It wouldn't be a good look. I understand that. But if you need the arms and you don't need that fifth starter, maybe you should be in this situation electing to option him down and give him a breather. If that's what you think he needs, then that's what you got to go with. But they elected to basically go a pitcher short tonight, be it that they have the day off tomorrow. But the one guy I'm looking at right now is Alex Verdugo. Alex Verdugo has been terrible in the leadoff spot. You look at what he did in the third inning the other day, trying to bunt with two men on base. That was basically taking the White Sox as a joke. And Verdugo basically saying after the game, "Oh, it's just one game. Everybody can beat anybody." The White Sox weren't beating anybody, and you lose like that. Like the lack of urgency from the Yankees at times frustrates fans. It just does, because that's the game you look at on the board. 3 games, it should be 3 wins. And it's not that you lost; it's you lost the way they lost, where they didn't put up a fight and they were getting guys on base every inning. They were not getting the big hit. They're all pressing. They were 2 for 16 with men in scoring position. They were terrible. And the last thing a fan wants to hear is, "Oh well, they play well too," and then like you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear that. And it poses the question: where is Jason Dominguez? Who's currently in the minors? And here's the problem: is where I look at the long term with Juan Soto. If the Yankees are going to be paying Juan Soto, then they can either use Jason. Then they shouldn't be worrying about Jason Dominguez in service time. He is down the minors, and they're not going to tell you this because they want to accrue the extra year of service time with Dominguez, maintain his Rookie of the Year status for next year. Because if he wins Rookie, they get draft picks and all that cool stuff. But you're supposed to be the Yankees. You're supposed to win this year. You've traded Juan Soto to win this year. Doesn't matter 4, 5, 6 years down the road. You're the Yankees. Figure it out. If Jason Dominguez can help this team now, especially with Chisholm's injury, now they did call up Oswald Peraza. He's been hitting the ball well at AAA after a disastrous start to the year. He hasn't been great at the major league level, but at least it gives him a shot. See what he can do. But Dominguez would be an extra element to this team. And you hate having to wait till September 1st to get him into the mix because all these games mean something over the last 41 games. You need to win games. You need your best lineup on the field. And right now, they don't have their best lineup on the field. Their best lineup is with Dominguez. He needs to be hitting now because the last time they tried to save him in AAA, he got hurt again. If he's going to get hurt in the majors. Especially with Verdugo struggling out of the leadoff spot. They got to find something in the leadoff spot, whether it's Verdugo, whether it's Torres. Maybe you put Judge and Soto there, as we talked about. But that's a mess. And you got Dominguez, you got Spencer Jones. Look, it's going to be tough to pay Juan Soto. He's going to want at least $500 million. And if I'm the Yankees and we can get into this in the winter, I don't care if Soto makes more than Judge. Sorry, it's like football. Sometimes you get lucky being the guy that gets paid at the right time. And I don't think Aaron Judge should really matter who gets paid more. I mean, Soto at least has won a world championship. Judge hasn't right now. So the Yankees will actually be in 2 cities this weekend. They'll be in Detroit taking on the Tigers, and they are going to be in Williamsport on Sunday for the Little League Classic against the Tigers. That's going to be a lot of fun. Now, for those not familiar with it, baseball does it once a year during the Little League World Series, and we'll talk about that event later. They play out in Bowman Field, which is the field that was used by the Williamsport Crosscutters. It's a fun event. They get all the Little League teams at the game. The players show up during the day while the players are playing and chat with the kids and take pictures and sit in stands and watch the games. it's a really cool experience. You saw the Mets do this a few years ago, and it's good for those players that get that once in a lifetime moment to play in this event. To get to talk to Aaron Judge or Juan Soto or a pitcher talk to Garrett Cole about what Garrett Cole does well. That's what makes that event special. Where you get the players from the U.S., the international players. It's so much fun. So the Yankees will get to experience that for the first time. It's Players Weekend as well, so you get some cool cleats and things like that. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with that. So you're going to want to check that out over the weekend. That's going to be a lot of fun. And as Adam says, Aaron Judge will literally tower over those kids. That is true. And Marcus, what's up? How you doing, man? Yep, 3 home runs last night, 1 home run tonight. Juan Soto's just absolutely clicking right now. A team that isn't really clicking, as we get into it, is going to be the New York Mets, who, when I look at the Mets right now, of course, they're taking on the A's. Now, when you look at the A's at this point, I know the A's are not exactly the greatest team out there, but they played well over the last 3 weeks. They're one of the better teams in the American League, believe it or not. But I don't think a lot of fans really realized when they go into this matchup. Now, they're playing well tonight. They're up 3-1 going into the bottom of the 6th inning, getting a good pitching performance from David Peterson, who allowed just 2 hits despite walking 4 batters. He's been really one of their quality starters out there. Mets getting 3 runs off of a double by Mark Vientos in the second. Francisco Lindor homer in the third, his 100th of his career and 23rd of the year. And Pete Alonso hit 2 homers in Coors Field the other day. It's his 26th of the year. And Pete's starting to find it in August, which is a good thing. But what's doing the Mets right now as they head into tonight with a 4-game losing streak is their offense. It's not their pitching. Their pitching is what people should have expected. Like, this is a team with a bunch of good, not great arms. They're not going to go deep into games. They're not going to be what you expect. Plain and simple. Their offense is going to have to carry them, which it did for the latter part going to the All-Star break. And coming in tonight, in their last 4 games with runners in scoring position, they are 4 for 33. They looked awful in Seattle. Shut out twice. They got outscored 22-1 in those 3 games. Now, you can chalk a lot of that up to the fact they went from Coors Field to Seattle. You went from a hitters-friendly ballpark to a place where hitters go to basically rot. Sorry, Nathan, in the Seattle Sideline Show, but that's the nature of the beast. To have that drastic move from Colorado to Seattle is tough. And you look at the Met pitching in that series. Quintana gave up a couple runs in the 7th inning, but overall he was good on Friday. Sean Manaea had 3 runs in the 1st inning. That did him in. And then Luis Severino was not good again. But the Mets don't have a lot of pitching depth right now, especially with Christian Scott's injury and Kodai Senga out for the year. Their offense has to carry them. And I did an article on Metsmerized earlier today where Brandon Nimmo has been terrible in the second half. Francisco Alvarez has been terrible this season. And you could chalk that to a lot of injuries, but he hasn't been the power supply the Mets need. And when you don't have Nimmo hitting at the top, and you don't have Alvarez hitting at the bottom, you can't round out this lineup the way you wanted to. Now, they're going to get Marte back, and they're going to most likely maybe at the end of the week. That'll help their offense. They also just signed Eddie Rosario to a minor league deal, which will help him at least in the outfield. Rosario has that postseason experience, even though he's had a down year in between Washington and Atlanta. JD Martinez has to get going. He got hit in the elbow last night by a pitch in the high 90s. That's never good. But what on the Mets last night was they were down 7-1. They cut it to 7-4 in the 5th. They had a tying run to the plate. Austin Adams comes in, former Met, who was trying to compete for a job in spring training. Adams gets the next 3 guys out, does the OMG mockery. Maybe he does the little extracurriculars, and the Mets were pissed about it. And I would say to the Mets, you wanted to get you knew that he was probably going to do that. Get hits. Like, what are you going to really do that's going to make Austin Adams regret doing that? Win the games. I don't want to hear the Mets talking about how they were upset by it. You're upset by it, go out there and win the games. Win the games you're supposed to win. You have a critical homestand that you have to take advantage of before you go on the road against 2 of the hottest teams in baseball in San Diego and Arizona coming up. So that's a big thing. And Do they have pitching to contend? I don't think they do because that's why I think they've got to rely on this offense. This offense is going to be the reason whether they make the playoffs or not. Now, when you look at the wild card right now, the Mets, as of tonight, 2 games back. The Braves won 2 extra games in San Francisco the last couple of nights, both thanks to Travis d'Arnaud, which got to make Met fans sick to their stomach. But you look at this wild card right now, nobody's running away with it. The Giants have played well of late, but they've lost 3 in a row. The Cardinals haven't played well. They've lost 3 in a row. The Reds are trying to catch fire, but do you trust the Reds to stay in it? The Cubs are trying to stay in it. Ralph's Pirates have lost 10 in a row. They've been going to oblivion. You know Arizona and San Diego are getting in. They're right now playing with their heads on fire. Arizona's won 6 in a row. San Diego has played well. They're both nearing 70 wins. It's going to be really hard to see them collapse and miss the playoffs. And they're trying to compete for a West title. They still got a shot with the Dodgers and the Padres. So when you look at this NL wildcard we talked about, it's really, I would say, 5 teams for one spot between Atlanta, the Mets, St. Louis, San Fran, and Cincinnati. I'll throw the Reds in for now, but I don't really trust that they're going to stay in the mix. So if you want to take the Reds out, it's really 4 teams for one spot. And the question is going to be, the Mets, their bullpen is going to get some pieces back with Sean Reed-Foley. They've got more depth now than they did in recent weeks with Maton and Stanek. I think bullpen-wise, they're fine. They have the most strikeouts of any bullpen in baseball. Buto's done a nice job. I think he's going to be a big piece down the stretch. And right now, the key is going to be to just stabilize things. Win tonight, which is what they're doing right now. You got the series finale tomorrow. Jose Quintana against Mitch Spence. Win that game. Then you get the Marlins coming up for 3 games. And the Mets should try to at least win 2 of those games. They're better than the Marlins. Then they play the Orioles coming up this week. 3 games at home. Maybe you win 2 there. Baltimore exactly isn't playing the greatest baseball. If you look up right now tonight, they are winning 4-1 against the Nationals, but they're exactly red hot right now. Mets have played well at home. Got to find a way to win those games to stay in the mix. And to do that, they're going to have to hit. And regarding scoring position this year, they've been one of the better teams in the league. So they have been able to prove they could do it. But they've got to be able to capitalize these last 6 weeks of the year. That offense is the only way they're going to make the postseason. So we'll take one more break. We'll come back. We'll talk some soccer. NYCFC with a huge win last night. We'll talk Liberty starting up the second half of their season. And we'll talk about of the kids in Staten Island getting some love as they begin their run to maybe a Little League World Series championship. We'll dive into all that coming up next here on New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. We'll take our final break and come back in just a minute.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter at any time. Be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey, Cleveland and Columbus sports fans. This is Jen D, host of the Show of the Land on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. If you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in live to the Show of the Land on Tuesdays, where we will cover the Cleveland Browns, Cavs, Guardians, and Monsters. We will also talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets, Crew, Fury, and of course, the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll also cover other colleges in the area like Akron, Kent State, Cleveland State, Mount Union, John Carroll, Baldwin Wallace, Youngstown State, among others. So like I said, if you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in Tuesdays to the Show of the Land with Jen D on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Of course, we're going to talk about Jen's Columbus Crew in just a second. Ricky Keeler back with you on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. Wrapping up episode 48 of New York State Sports. We'll have some news on the future of the show coming up at the end, so you want to stay tuned for that over these last 15 minutes or so. But let's talk NYCFC getting into some soccer. Of course, we're not going to talk Red Bulls for a little bit because their Leagues Cup run ended early, but NYCFC still alive. They go to the Leagues Cup quarterfinals. Last night they took on Tigres, which is a team in the Mexican League, one of the better teams. But of course, back in 2020, Tigres won 5-0 in this matchup. Yes, it's 4 years later. It's different teams, different rosters. But this was a matchup that NYCFC wasn't favored in because you look at their League Cup run and they've won every game on penalty. They've won 2 other games they've won on penalties, including that crazy finish against New England the other night where they won 7-6 in PKs. And then they blew the game against Cincinnati where they allowed 4 goals in 10 minutes at the end. And they get down 1-0 early. This game was at Red Bull Arena, so it's really a road game, which is why they need to build this soccer stadium because they need that home field advantage. But they don't give in. 3 minutes later, Maxi Morales gets the ball in the attacking third, delivers the big goal to tie the game. And then second half, when Tigres was dictating all the play, they had a set piece play that went off the post. So NYCFC kind of got lucky there. But it was a stoppage in play. They're starting up the play, and NYCFC kind of gets into the mix of it where you maybe think the ref could have got involved or VAR could have got involved, which Tigres was not happy with after the game. NYCFC steals it. There was the give and go to Santi Rodriguez, who has been money for this team this year. He's got 8 goals. He delivers the goal in the 65th minute. Tigres has a good push at the end, but it's just not enough. And this is a big win for Nick Cushing. Nick Cushing said before the tournament that the goal was the round of 16, which makes sense. This team is the second lowest seeded team in the tournament left. Colorado, I believe, is the lowest one. They got a clutch win last night in stoppage time. So for this team to get where it is, and it's probably, as I was reading on X last night, it's probably a top 3 win in the franchise history. Keep in mind they've won an MLS Cup in their short existence. But to get to a quarterfinal in a national tournament or an international tournament, that's a big deal. Especially when this group wasn't exactly playing great going into the break. Find their footing a little bit, get some momentum. I think that's a good sign. And it shows the program is kind of going in the right direction a little bit. Like Cushing's doing some good stuff. He was on a lot of pressure early in the year. They're 5th in the Eastern Conference. They're playing strong soccer. I think that's all you could ask them to do. They're going to have a tough matchup, though, on Saturday. We're going to just call it like it is. They're going to be the underdogs. The game is in Columbus Saturday night, 6 o'clock Eastern. Great win by the Crew last night. They were down 2-0 to Miami in the second half on the road, and they get 3 goals. Where it looked like for a minute NYCFC would have hosted Miami if that matchup held. Now they got to go on the road. Columbus is the reigning MLS Cup champions. Diego Rossi's playing well. You got to like the way Columbus is going now. These two teams played back in June at Yankee Stadium. Remember, Wilfred Nancy had the comments about Yankee Stadium isn't really a true soccer stadium. Columbus won that game 3-2, had a really good second half to get the victory. Other than that, back in 2023, both these teams played the 1-1 draws in their only two matchups. I give Columbus the edge just because it's tough to see NYCFC find some offense. But the one thing I was listening to the analysts in the game last night, they're talking about character and talking about that NYCFC just seems to find a way. They don't give up. When you've got a goaltender like Matt Freese, who's one of the better goaltenders in MLS, you've got a shot. Like, at least they built their team around defense. And there was a couple of players I noticed last night that did a really good job, especially in the defensive third. One being Tavon Gray. He did a really good job at the end. That Tigres guy toward the end of the game flopped so bad they should have gave him a yellow card. Like, I don't understand. Like, if I look at the replay, especially on that moment when it looks like everyone's panicking that they're going to get a penalty and it's not even close to it, you should get a yellow card, not Tavon Gray, who got one for saying something to a ref while he was injured. I thought he played well. I thought Christian McFarland played well. And McFarland's a guy that he's only 17 years old. So this is a player with a bright young future. He did a really good job defensively. So Gray and McFarland on the back end, I thought did some good things in this one. And I'm also going to give a little bit of credit to a guy like Hannes Wolf. I thought he had some good minutes. I love what Julian Fernandez did off the bench, especially when NYCFC was trying to kill some clock. He was able to get that speed with the fresh legs down the field and burn some precious minutes off. So all in all, some good things. And if NYCFC loses the quarterfinal game, they're going to get some valuable experience going into the final stretch. They'll actually play Columbus again in 2 weeks on August 31st in Columbus. So they'll get this matchup twice. And I think this can only benefit them. But a good run for Nick Cushing's squad. And who knows, maybe they'll keep it going and get to a semifinal, which would be fantastic. But only time will tell. I don't think they're going to win, but we'll find out. Of course, shout out to Team USA, both on the basketball side, the men and women getting the gold medal. Really good finishes in both those games against France. Sabrina Nescu and Brianna Stewart take home the gold. Sandy Brondello's Australia squad took home the bronze. So good thing for a lot of those players getting some medals. Looks really, really cool. And now the Liberty gets set to begin the second half of their season. An excellent first half. They went 21-4. And we talked about it last week, seeing Phoebich and Sabally doing a good job for their respective countries, for Germany in the Olympics, is only going to do some good things for them. And you look at them right now, they're 21-4. They got the Sparks coming up tomorrow. Sparks are terrible, 6-18. Liberty's favored by 11.5. Are there going to be some rust coming out of the break? And do they look ahead to a big matchup Saturday against the Aces? That's a 4:00 game that's on CBS. And the Liberty beat the Aces earlier this year in Las Vegas. The Aces will come to Barclays in September. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Sabrina Nescu does, what Brianna Stewart does coming off the Olympic break. You got to, maybe they rely more on Jonquil Jones and Courtney Vandersloot in this game Thursday while they kind of get recuperated. The Liberty have some wiggle room. They're 2.5 games ahead of Connecticut for the top seed in the WNBA. If you look at the Eastern Conference, really after Connecticut, Indiana is the third team at 11-15. So the Liberty lose games is not the end of the world. Remember, their goal is a WNBA championship. Their goal is not a regular season championship. So whatever helps them get ready for this fall and getting a title, that's the big important thing. Now, they played the Sparks earlier this year. They beat the Sparks at Barclays. Again, it's a game they should win. They got the Aces coming up, and then they're at home for a back-to-back with the Wings, and then a big game with the Sun next Saturday. So we'll keep an eye on that. But 8 straight goals from the U.S. women. Very impressive. So we'll wrap it up here with a shout-out to the local kids. See if I can do that one here. Shout out to the kids from South Shore Little League, Staten Island, my hometown, getting to the Little League World Series. They beat Morristown, New Jersey last Friday to be the Metro representative in Williamsport. It's a hell of a run. And as we talked about the last couple of weeks, this is where it's a once in a lifetime kind of moment for these kids. They've had a really good regional. Remember, they lost New Jersey 11-1 a couple games prior. They had the walk-off win in the semifinals to get to the championship game. They're getting good pitching. Got good situational hitting. They're going to have a tough opponent coming up. So their first game is going to be 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow against the team from Nevada. That's the mountain region. Nevada's got some good pitching. So that's going to be a really fun game. And I'm watching a little bit of the games today. There was a really good U.S. game on Hawaii was taking on New Hampshire, and Hawaii had New Hampshire had the bases loaded. They hit a liner to third that the Hawaii third baseman caught and doubled up the runner to end the game. So if that's an indication of what these games are going to be, you're going to get some drama. And that's what you want. I mean, we've seen Staten Island the last couple of times not make deep runs. I remember a team from Staten Island, South Shore, a while back getting into the U.S. semifinal, which was big for them. We've had in the past, I mentioned last week, Mid Islands won a championship. So there is a track record of good baseball here in the borough of Staten Island, but just a good run for these kids. Enjoy the experience, have some fun. Maybe they get some wins. Just a good way to end the summer, especially those kids. They get done in Williamsport, they're going to go back to school in a couple of weeks. So a heck of a run. Congratulations, South Shore Little League. We'll be pulling for them. And hopefully they pull some upsets. Should be a lot of fun if there are upsets. So they'll play Nevada on Thursday. If we pull up the bracket, we'll take a look at what might be next for them. And it's a different than years past, where normally you would have the case of like winner's bracket, loser's bracket. If they win on Thursday, they're going to, if they lose, they will play on Saturday at 3:00. And if they win, let's pull this up real quick, try to get the matchups for you. I believe they will play Sunday. No, if they win, they play Monday. So it's actually a big thing to do. If they win this game, they're going to play on Monday. So they'll get some rest, which will be a big important thing, especially when you look at pitching and pitch limits and things like that. So you win, you get to enjoy a couple days off in Williamsport. And the Grove, I hear, is fantastic. I didn't get to go to the Grove because I didn't play. It's only for the players. But when I went for my one-time Williamsport, I enjoyed it tremendously. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. So we're not going to go to Thursdays going forward. I actually making a move. So my current place of employment, not doing shows on Thursdays as of right now. We're looking to do like early in the week kind of shows. I'll give you more update on our X accounts, which I will pop up again at NY State Sports IE Abercrombie 555. And it'll be great for us. If we go to Monday, we'll get to recap the Giants and Jet games during the year. Big news for the Giants this week in terms of week 1. Sam Darnold, now the starting quarterback for the Vikings, with J.J. McCarthy out for the 2024 season with the torn meniscus. Makes that game even more of a must-win for the Giants because Sam Darnold could potentially haunt New York dreams when he's not playing quarterback for a New York football team. But it'll be a lot of fun. So keep that in mind over the next couple of weeks. We'll try to finalize a new time. The show's not going anywhere. I love doing this show for you guys. We're reaching 50 episodes soon. Look out for maybe some post games, especially when the Jets play on Monday Night Football, the Giants play on Sunday Night Football. Maybe we'll do little post game shows to get you set for the next week's action. We'll have some fun along the way with that. So as we wrap up the show today, I want to talk about just the Giants and Jets getting big week 1 preseason wins. Jets, we'll see if Hassan Reddick goes to camp. I guess we're going to have to have Hassan Reddick watch after we had Aaron Rodgers Egypt watch. But that should be a lot of fun. You also have the Yankees, of course, in action right now with the White Sox. That game is 1-1 in the 4th inning. Yankees trying to get a win there and take 2 out of 3. The Mets ahead over the A's as they try to get split the first 2 games. Both these teams in divisional wildcard races. We're going to have a fun last 6 weeks with both these teams. Maybe both teams get in the playoffs, and the only one gets in the playoffs. So we'll find out. NYCFC, a big quarterfinal matchup coming up on Saturday against Columbus. Can they steal the win and get to a semifinal and add on to the historic run that this team is on? The Liberty get back in action We'll have now some WNBA to talk about this fall, as the Liberty are trying to go for a championship. And before you know it, Knicks training camp will be here, Rangers training camp will be here, Islanders, Devils, all that stuff. The more sports come up, the more we're going to have some fun. And of course, Staten Island in that Little League World Series. We're going to dive into all of that stuff coming up next week, either Monday or Tuesday. I'll be back to talk about at least the first Giants and Jets second preseason games. Look ahead to the Snoopy Bowl at MetLife next week. Maybe Aaron Rodgers plays in it. Maybe he doesn't. Thanks for all those who tuned in. Remember to follow us at IE Sports Radio. If you missed any portion of the show, or just want to hear me talk again because you think my takes are awesome, go and check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Of course, at iesportsradio.com/sports is the place to go. From all of us here at IE Sports Radio, of course, tune in later tonight in just an hour. Heart Attack Sports and Truth Team. Always a lot of fun, and we'll see who's playing with them in the Blitz. It should be pretty interesting. So stay tuned for that. From all of us here at the network, this is Ricky Keeler. Hey, have a great weekend. Enjoy the Giants and Jets preseason. Enjoy the Yankees and Mets this weekend. I'll see you back here next week.